Okay, so you guys ready? Game on here. So, what I want you to do is take a moment and start thinking about vascular systems. So, we were talking about this in the last lecture, looking at the structures and the groups that have vascular systems. Well, they didn't, all the parts and pieces of the vascular system didn't evolve all at the same time. It's a progression. That's what evolution is. It's a progressive process that this evolutionary adaptation works. And then it only works for so long. So then we need another one and then another one. And when I'm talking about the process, we're talking about millions of years. This isn't like, oh, in the last 3 weeks, we evolved all these things. So think about phones. What version of the iPhone is out there now? 10, 11, 12, etc. Why couldn't they do all those adjustments in the very first version? Because it's an evolutionary process. You build what you think works, what's the most competitive, what's the most adaptable, and then as more competition shows up, you better change and adjust to keep having the best thing out there. That is how life evolves. Always trying to evolve features that are going to increase your evolutionary success. So what I want you to do is pause the video, and then I want you to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 next to these structures in the order you think they evolved. What is the very first evolutionary adaptation that would be necessary for a vascular plant to evolve? And then we're going to talk about it, and I'll go through the order. But what I want you also to write down is, and this is where you guys need to be doing this, taking notes on paper somewhere, what benefit did each structure bring to the plant? Why would this feature be first? What benefit did it provide the plant that said this really needs to happen in this order? Okay, so pause, write all this stuff out, and then we'll come back and we'll see who is going to be successful with the evolutionary process. Pause. Okay, so you're back. Okay, you guys should have your list 1 through 6 listing out these features, and then what benefit did each structure bring? So, okay. So, let's do orange. Okay, so here's the evolutionary game. The very first structure to evolve to make you more competitive, because, all right, let me actually back up and draw this out, because remember that previous slide where we saw Cooksonia? Here's the liverwort, here's the moss, and then we have Cooksonia, a couple centimeters tall, just big enough to be more competitive. Okay, so the first evolutionary structure that would help vascular plants be more competitive is going to be the stems. Okay, so there's number one. So if you said to be more competitive, to outcompete a moss or a liverwort, I need a stem first. You're successful. Anybody else who tried to evolve one of the other structures, you're dead. That's how evolution works. Sorry, it's not fuzzy and warm and a soft, nice, cushy feeling. It's the reality of evolution. So if you said, ooh, I'm going to evolve leaves first, you died because you were not evolutionarily successful. So everybody who had stems first, keep living. You're alive. So the stem allows you to get bigger. That's what Cooksonia did. It used its stems to outcompete the mosses and the liverworts and to decrease their diversity by outcompeting them. All right. So everybody who's still alive, what is your next evolutionary structure? Let me change colors. Let's go to purple. So once your stems are growing, you better have a root system. So if I'm going to get bigger, I need a way to anchor myself into the ground. I need a way to start absorbing nutrients and water from the soil. So I need a root system. That is my second evolutionary structure to make me more competitive. So it supports me and helps transport things. Okay, so now I'm getting bigger, but so are other plants. How can I outcompete them? Just getting taller isn't necessarily going to do it. Excuse me. Let me put on some leaves. So remember the microphyll, megaphyll. So if I can grow leaves, I don't necessarily have to be bigger because the leaf is going to help me photosynthesize better. So now I can outcompete you because I can grow more leaves or grow leaves, and that actually may shade you, which now means you're probably not going to do as well. So I'm outcompeting you because I'm getting bigger, I have roots to hold me in place, and I'm producing some leaves that increase my photosynthetic capabilities. All right, so let's keep getting bigger. Let's get more diversity with our leaves. And then we go into megaphyll leaves. Now I can really photosynthesize because I can produce these big, gigantic leaves. All right, now, I still want to be competitive. I'm going to start producing seeds. Oh, that's number 4. So the fourth evolutionary structure for success are seeds. Because if I can drop my seed, a seed offers protection to the embryo, it has a food supply in there for it, and it really increases the chance of success of my offspring. And evolution is about generations of the population. It's not one organism, it's over a long period of time. So seeds increase the reproductive potential of my population, which means I can outcompete you and hopefully continue to survive. But now that I have leaves, I have seeds, I'm getting bigger. My seeds can get transported and maybe spread somewhere else. If I have seeds that get spread by wind or water or animals or who knows what. What's my next thing? So think about how many of you are still alive? How many of you have been evolutionarily successful to walk down this path that the plants did? That's why we have the plant diversity we have today. Certain species over time evolved and went down this evolutionary path. So, okay, let's see, what is our next one? Let's go with that color. No, let's go with that color. Okay, so the next structure that you want will be fruits. You guys thought I was going for flowers. Fruits. Ooh, I gotta get that a little bigger. Okay, so I'm going to produce fruit that surrounds a seed. So think about what's the advantage here. If I make a fruit that surrounds a seed, perhaps something will eat the fruit and carry the seed away from the parent plant. So now all of a sudden these seeds are deposited up here or over here because the animal or predator, generally the animal, carries the fruit away as it's eating it, or it goes into the digestive system and then it poops it out a yard away or a mile away or 5 miles away or wherever. It's helping spread the population of the plant that, oh, sorry, I forgot my leaves here, of the plant that can produce seeds. So any of you guys ever notice blackberries and the birds love them and then they poop those seeds out everywhere, and that's what helps spread blackberry populations. Honeysuckle, same problem. The birds eat those little red berries and then fly all over and drop the seeds all over. That's great success for that plant because it's using a fruit to contain the seed to get the population dispersed all over the place. The last evolutionary structure that was necessary or that evolved would be the flowers. Okay, so flowers. Let's make a nice pretty flower here to attract a pollinator, to increase our genetic diversity. If we can get different pollinators to come in, it increases reproductive potential, and everything else is going to help become more successful. All right, so gives us a picture of how the vascular systems evolved over time and the process plants went through. So how many of you made it through all 6 stages of evolution? Again, if you didn't, you went extinct. That's why we see all these plants in the fossil record that are no longer present on Earth. Or we see a decline in the biodiversity of certain groups of plants because they did not evolve down this pathway. And it's not to say that everything has to follow the same pathway. This is just what became evolutionarily successful. If life evolved differently, maybe leaves would have been the 6th structure instead of the 3rd, and so on. So again, look at these things and reflect on the evolutionary process. All right, so here's our big picture again. We were talking about these different groups. We tackled liverworts through hornworts. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is tackling the lycophytes, and then we'll get into the ferns, and they say the ferns and their allies, and then keep progressing our way through plant evolution, eventually getting all the way down to the angiosperms. But what I want you guys to kind of really pay attention to here are these features listed below. So down here, these are some of the key features we're going to see in all of the groups that evolved from this common ancestor down here. So the lycophytes, ferns, allies, etc. And then we start seeing the evolution of these additional features and structures here. Okay, so our first group to tackle will be those lycophytes. I don't want to say generically, but commonly refer to these guys as the club mosses. So when we look at this group, a couple key things to mention and take a look at. Lycophytes are worldwide. We'll find them in all sorts of different environments. They are particularly abundant in the tropics, so a species that has evolved and done very well in a tropical environment. They are vascular, so they will have a conduction system, but a big difference with this group compared to the hornworts, mosses, and liverworts is that the sporophyte is dominant in this group. So this green stuff that you're looking at up here, that is actually the body of the lycophyte. That's a sporophyte. The gametophyte portion of the life cycle has become very reduced compared to the sporophyte. So, like I said, with mosses, what you're seeing 90% of the time is the gametophyte. Sporophyte's that little, looks like a golf club on top of the moss. But that trend reverses itself here. So this green, again, is a sporophyte. And then what we see up here in this image here, this is a structure known as a strobilus. Make sure I spell this right. The strobilus is a structure that contains the spores or the gametophytes. So it's not going to be present very often during, oh, too small, during the reproductive window of that particular plant's life cycle. So again, a huge change here as we get into the club, not just the club mosses, but all of the the vascular seedless plants. These guys are still seedless though. So they're producing what we call, well, let's put the quotes, call spores or gametophytes instead of true seeds. They also will lack any kind of really good vascular leaves. They have these extensions. There's not a what we would consider really a true vascular system. So this does limit the size of the particular plants. They're bigger than the mosses and the liverworts and the hornworts, but definitely not as big as most of the vascular plants we see out there today. And one last thing to hashtag. These plants evolved and died off. They're still around though, but lots of them died. And they helped form some of the coal deposits that we're using on Earth today. So they've been around for over 400 million years. That's why these guys are found in coal deposits. Younger plants, things that have evolved 200 million years ago, they're not part of the coal formation. It takes hundreds of millions of years for that stuff to form. So, okay, I'm going to pause it here. And then we'll come back and we'll tackle what we call the pterophytes. Those will be the ferns and fern-related plants.